Let me start with an update on what we probably should rename from being the SCR 201 consultation report, and I'll say a little bit more about that. While we have been referring to this as the SCR 201 project, I want to go back, especially for new regents and others who haven't been following the evolution of this, which goes back almost 3 years now. Early in the pandemic, the Board of Regents itself decided to broadly look at tenure in the context of resources and change, and created a Permitted Interaction Group, or PIG, affectionately known or unaffectionately by some as the Tenure PIG. Subsequent to that, the legislature passed a concurrent resolution. So Senate concurrent resolution, concurrent means it was passed by both chambers, the Senate and the House. That's SCR 201. That called for a report on a number of issues relating to faculty, including tenure, also faculty classification and more. And there's a rich history of that available online. The Tenure PIG completed its work first and proposed a very specific set of changes to Board of Regents policy. The meeting at which those were presented, there was robust testimony on the topic. I think it's fair to say not of a lot of warm acceptance from the faculty for the changes proposed. The Board of Regents as a whole deferred acting on those specific recommendations pending the outcome of the work that was called for by the SCR 201, independent piece of work. So the SCR 201 task force was created pursuant to that concurrent resolution. That included UH Regents Administration and UPA. It was chaired by the Board of Regents chair, and that group looked at both the work of the Tenure PIG as well as the tasks specified in the Senate concurrent resolution. It completed its work and presented a report to the 2022 legislature. The full board then reviewed the report of the task force, and it had the results from the Tenure PIG. And the board then voted explicitly to create and charge an implementation working group of the UH administration and UPA to work with faculty to implement a set of recommendations, again, drawn from both reports. Understanding the sensitivity of the recommendations regarding the specialists or S faculty, the implementation working group created a dedicated S faculty working group composed of members recommended by the Faculty Senate. So we wanted to bring that input in early to provide input to the implementation working group on this specific part of the charge from the board. That S faculty working group provided a report to the implementation working group, that's the broader group, last fall, and their input was considered in the full set of recommendations that was provided to you, to the full board late last year. The board asked us to continue and provide regular updates to the Board of Regents, of which this is one. We then initiated formal consultation with the faculty senates this spring after the semester started. As I mentioned last month, the faculty senates have struggled to provide input on a timely basis. It was a very large set of changes. While none of it was really a surprise, there was a lot of paper and a lot of policies with a lot of detail presented all at once. Last month, I reported here that we had agreed to phase the consultation on that so that the faculty senates could focus first on the changes to the faculty classification system, including the S specialist faculty question. I have been advised since that there is still concern about the timeline and even a request to restart some of that work anew. We're never happy with delay, especially this is something that's been underway for years. The area of greatest concern does seem to be the changes to specialist or S faculty. This is a construct that has been at UH since the 1960s, although it doesn't exist in general at any other institutions in the country. We want to do our best to address the concerns and get meaningful feedback from the faculty senates prior to implementing policy changes. And we're trying to get this done right the first time with the benefit of the best input possible. So at this point, Vice President Halbert is working with UPA to try to move forward as quickly as we can with input from the faculty senates. We're trying to get the best input we can this spring before many faculty go off duty for the summer. We will continue doing technical work over the summer, in particular relating to some of the issues that will require formal collective bargaining that appears to be necessary. Our goal is to slip only one semester. That would be to try to get this done in by the end of the fall 2023 semester. And that includes all of the projects. None of the others are as complicated or appear to be as contentious as the changes. I want to emphasize, under the clear guidelines from every report that has been provided, there would be no involuntary change to any current employee. So changes in classification would be prospective. There would be options for people to apply to participate in the changes, but nobody would be required to change during the lifetime of their employment at the University of Hawaiʻi. Update on extramural funding. As of this morning, we're a little over $390 million. This is actually down about 7.5% from the $421 million plus last year. I mentioned the backlog last month. The backlog of all the agreements that have been approved by sponsors has been cleared, and Vice President Sirmos reports there is still about $28 million in pending contracts and grants sitting ready to be processed. He's pushing hard, including authorizing overtime in his somewhat short-staffed office. If all of that had been processed as of last night, we would be within about 1% of last year. So we are still hopeful, but we have a little bit of work to do. While the numbers are not what we had hoped for, we always want to be ahead of last year at all times. I just want to mention two projects to give you a sense of the consequence of the work we're doing. The first is a project about our Hawaiian land snails, most of which are found nowhere else in the world. They're endemic to Hawaii, and they are among the most threatened fauna on the planet. We have a collaboration between the University of Hawaiʻi at Manoa, the Bernice Pauahi Bishop Museum, and the Hawaii Department of Land and Natural Resources to conserve endangered land snails as one of 6 new projects funded by a partnership between the National Science Foundation and the Paul G. Allen Family Foundation. Paul Allen is the co-founder of Microsoft. And I mention this project because it gives you a sense of the ways in which new partnerships in conducting the research, but also in funding research, are so important to the changing landscape. Kiana Frank at PBRC is our co-PI, and she's working to identify host plant preferences, characterize feeding ecology, and determine the primary microbial food resources that are critical for enhancing both captive rearing and wild propagation of our endangered land snails in Hawaii. And this is an outgrowth of our Si Maiki project, which Provost Bruno has talked to you about. This is one of the strategic initiatives that he supported based on proposals, innovative proposals from our faculty. And Si Maiki has probably succeeded far beyond any possible reasonable expectation anybody could have had when it was proposed, both in terms of impacts on our understanding of the microbiome in the environment and the financial support that it's brought in from extramural sources. The second project I want to mention is on Hawaii Island, and that's about the impact of sewage outflow on offshore reefs. That's so critical to all our islands and, of course, throughout the Pacific and other parts of the world. This was also a collaboration, in this case, among UH Hilo and UH Manoa researchers and the state working at Puako on the western coast of Hawaii Island, where UH Hilo has coastal access. Longtime board members will remember a lease we have from DLNR for that property. And the study on detection and impact of sewage pollution on South Kohala's coral reefs was actually led by one of our alumni, Devin Aguiar, who is currently a fish and habitat monitoring specialist for the Hawaii Division of Aquatic Resources. He's a UH Hilo graduate. And this just gives you a sense of the way in which both our education and our research programs are impacting positively our environmental understanding here in Hawaii, with lessons that are valuable to natural resource managers throughout the state and around the world. Just a couple other points. Most of you are not accustomed to a Board of Regents meeting or even committee meetings without me, and I was not here 2 weeks ago for the committee meetings. I was part of a delegation from the Western Interstate Commission for Higher Ed, or WICHE, visiting the Pacific. And without going into a lot of detail, WICHE has traditionally been a compact among the 15 Western states. WICHE extended a membership to the 6 U.S. affiliated Pacific Island jurisdictions. And I'm the current past chair of WICHE, which makes me an officer, and 5 of us from leadership, president, vice president, and the 3 officers, took a whirlwind visit to Saipan, Guam, and Majuro. Lots of impactful moments. We visited colleges and policymakers, and the timing was perfect with our own UH recognition of our commitment to understand and collaborate in the Pacific as one of the hubs in our new strategic plan that you approved just late last year, in November. But I want to highlight one program, which is the Marshall Islands cohort of our UH Manoa Pacific Masters in Education program. This is a program that is supported by the government of the Marshall Islands, and we run a 2-year cohort program for master's degree candidates, about 20 students. And the students were so excited that the president of their soon-to-be alma mater was going to be there, that they threw a reception for all of us, including the WICHE team, and shared the impacts of the program. We all get to go to graduations, and it's pretty touching. But when you see the impact of a small program, just 20 students, now in its 3rd cohort, in a place with a small population, challenges far beyond what we see in Hawaii, educational, health, and certainly environmental, with a highest elevation point is less than 10 feet above sea level. You can just imagine what climate change is doing there. They have literally 100% completion rate of those first 2 cohorts, except for 2 students who are deceased. They are finishing their 3rd cohort, and the 4th cohort was there also, prepared to start in the fall. It made all of us really proud to see what we were doing. And in a small town, it was also front page news in the next weekly newspaper. We also had breakfast with the former president of the Marshall Islands, who's well known and appreciated here. Hilda Heine is herself a UH alumna as well, and it is clear that people like Chip Fletcher are no stranger to them as they struggle to cope with climate change. I want to highlight, last week I was in Washington, D.C., and I was on a panel at the American Council on Education, ACE. A couple of our other chancellors were there, including Chancellor Benham and Chancellor Eschenberg, who are here with us today. One of the things they released was a report on diversity of presidents. They call it the President and Chancellor's Report. And it was pretty grim news nationally. 33% of college presidents or chancellors, I'll just say presidents, are women. This is up from 30% 7 years ago, 23% 7 years before that. So moving in the right direction, but only up to 33%. 73% of presidents are white. That is down from, well, it's up from 70% and down previously from 77%. So it's not really making a whole lot of progress. And I want to contrast that with UH because I just looked at our 10, each of our 10 chancellors would be considered a campus CEO in this study. Of our 10, 7 female, 3 male, pretty much the reverse of the national trend. We have 3 Caucasians, 2 Hawaiians, 2 Asians, 2 Hispanic, and 1 Filipina. So pretty good look like Hawaii. And we have exactly 1 out of 10 white males, and that would be me. Yeah. So nationally, that number is 45%. I guess what I can tell you is we have work to do here, but compared to where the rest of the country is, Hawaii is well ahead of the curve. And if you look at the 3 private universities in Hawaii, we have 2 male, 1 female, 1 Caucasian, 1 Hawaiian, 1 Asian. So Hawaii is representing pretty well, I would say, relative to this country. Lastly, let me mention the current average tenure of a president nationally, 5.9 years. Down from 6.5 years 7 years ago, down from 8.5 years 7 years before that in 2006. So these jobs do not seem to be getting any easier anywhere in the country. Lastly, I just want to give you an update on our successful esports program. Sorry, I can't help myself. It'll be fast. Some of you are familiar with KawaiiCon. That's the annual 3-day celebration of Japanese culture, anime, and overall pop culture, comics, sci-fi, costuming, etc. It's really pretty delightful if you ever get a chance to see it. 6 of our campuses fielded teams in Smash Bros, which is a Nintendo game. Manoa took the championship, but we were really delighted that in this case, Kapiʻolani Community College made it to the finals over our other 4 larger campuses. In addition, 8 of our esports students will be traveling to Seoul this summer to intern at the headquarters of Gen.G, which is one of the largest esports enterprises in the world. They visited UH Manoa and they're really eager to work with our esports program and the Korean Studies Department together to make these internships more frequent and raise funding. So lots of good things going on, exciting a lot of our young people. And if you're on campus, it's in the former iLab building. And if you pop in, it's amazing to watch what the students are doing in there. So with that, I'll do a little bit longer than usual introduction because we have a new chancellor here today to share progress from Kapiʻolani Community College. Misaki Takabayashi is new to KCC. I think she's about 50 days on the job, something like that. She doesn't seem to regret coming back yet. While new to Kapiʻolani Community College, she is not new to UH or Hawaii. She was a faculty member at UH Hilo, an administrator at UH Hilo. She has a degree in Hawaiian lifestyles from Hawaii Community College. She, when she left UH Hilo, she spent several years as an administrator at the Okinawa Institute of Science and Technology, which is one of the most innovative and amazing research institutions in the world. And she's coming back and already starting to rebuild relationships between UH and Okinawa.